This module focuses on environmental turbulence and related set of observations and measurements attributable to Dr. Igor Antsov, who was regarded by many as the father of strategic management. Peter H. Antonio and Patrick A. Sullivan edited a 500-page anthology on Igor Antsov. This is a 2006 publication with contributions from Henry Mintzberg, Michael Gold, Roman Lumbester, Mike Hitt, and other famous personalities in this field. My presentation is entirely devoted to the school of thought or paradigm advanced by Antsov in the field of strategic management. Igor Antsov, at the age of 83, succumbed to illness in 2002. However, his thoughts are so profound and scientific in nature that they would live forever. Dr. Antsov was born in Vladivostok on December 12, 1918. After emigrating to USA in his early years along with his family, he attended New York City's Steuben High School and continued his education at Stevens Institute of Technology to receive his MS degree and later obtained a PhD at Brown University. The United States International University, now called Alliant International University, was his place of work for 17 years. His major professional contributions include environmental turbulence, the contingent strategic success paradigm, and real-time strategic management. The Netherlands bestowed on him a unique honor by establishing the Igor Antsov Award in 1981. A similar award was instituted by the Japan Strategic Society, while Vanderbilt University honored him with an Antsov MBA scholarship. Dr. Antsov was also associated with many well-known leading universities such as Carnegie Mellon, Vanderbilt, European Institute for Advanced Studies in Management, and Stockholm School of Economics. He authored numerous papers and books. A not-for-profit institute titled Antsov Institute has been established to honor his contributions to strategic management. For more particulars, please see the webpage www.antsofinstitute.org. The top of his thought pyramid is dominated by turbulence in the environment, which could be measured by the complexity of the environment as well as the speed of change in the environment in relation to the possible speed of response. A good example of a perfect storm is the recent collapse of the world economy and the consequences we witness these days. Banks have failed, employment is on the rise, markets have panicked. The question everyone is asking, are we facing another Great Depression? John Wagoner argues in November 14, 2008 issue of USA Today that by any measure, our current economic suffering pales in comparison with what the nation endured from 1929 to 1939. Wagoner continues, the Great Depression felt a mark on the world that remains today, really 80 years after it began. It recreated our banking systems, molded our securities, laws, and left scars on the nation's psyche that has faded only modestly with the decades. During the Depression, savers watched their money evaporate in bank failures because deposits weren't insured. Banks became so unpopular that bank robbers such as Bonnie and Clyde became folk heroes. By the depth of the Depression, 1 in every 4 members of the population was out of work. The Dow Jones Industrial Average had fallen 89%, The entire banking system was shut for 4 days by presidential order. Home and farm foreclosures soared. Homeless people created vast shanty towns called Hoovervilles outside most major cities. The word depression became so terrifying that economists stopped using it to describe a business slump. It was an active choice of words, says Peter Bernstein, the celebrated economist. The Roosevelt administration judged the word too terrifying for the public to hear. Bernstein says, and for people who lived through the Depression, it was terrifying indeed. It was a killer, Bernstein says. The two basic questions we keep asking: is the future predictable? Is the future visible? Being a scientist, Ansoff strongly believes in measurement of predictability and visibility. Accordingly, he suggests 5 levels of environmental turbulence, from being stable at level 1 to being surpriseful at level 5. The July 2009 issue of the well-known magazine Economist has an article titled "Red All Over," which maps the global recession. The map indicates that the whole of North America and a wide portion of Europe are in a state of recession, while Norway, Slovenia, and Slovakia are in the brink of a downturn. The Asian scene is no better, except for China and India. The other two countries barely affected by the recessionary trend were Brazil and Russia. The Economist admits that data for Africa are spotty, but the continent's biggest economy, South Africa, is in recession. The economic outlook issued by IMF indicates that global GDP would shrink by 1.4% during this year, while the economic contraction in rich countries would be around 3.8%. Using the Ansoff model, this phenomenon is clearly surprising. No one predicted this level of global economic collapse in so short a time, even though Wagner argues that we are already in a recovery mode. Chris Isidore, senior writer of CNNMoney.com, commented on October 12, 2009, that recession may be over, but the recovery is painful. His observations are based upon a survey of the top economists by the National Association of Business Economics, NABE. The findings represent views expressed by 43 top economists in September 2009. These economists have from leading Wall Street firms, reputed universities, and major corporations. The survey indicates that 35 respondents believe that the recovery has begun. The optimistic group represents 81% of the survey population. While 4 respondents remained uncertain, the remaining 4 believe that the economy is still in recession. There is, however, no doubt among all the economists that the recovery would be slow and painful. This is a lingering weakness in the housing and labor markets, while credit availability remains tight. Obviously, this economic behavior represents moderate or severe discontinuity and could therefore be placed at level 4 or 5 in the Ansoff scale of measurement of environmental turbulence. At level 5, change is very rapid. there is lack of visibility and predictability. On the other hand, level 4 events are partially predictable and partially visible. This subtle difference demarcates levels 4 and 5 for environmental turbulence. In either case, it's difficult to provide an accurate description of what to expect in the distant future. Comparatively, the first three levels 1, 2, and 3 of environmental turbulence are basically driven by historical precedents. Level 1 represents stability. There is no reason to believe that tomorrow will be different from today. Changes are likely to occur in level 2, but they are slow and incremental. They are fully visible and predictable. If such a change remains fully visible and predictable, but occur at a fast pace, even if incremental, this would be classified as level 3. Consumer demand, basic weather patterns, etc., could come under one of these classifications, since they are history-driven. If enough statistics are available and a trend is visible, it becomes only a matter of extrapolation. Many examples are available in the forecasting literature. Even in the macroeconomic level, business cycles, commodity cycles, and the like help planners to anticipate economic ups and downs. On the other hand, launching a new product in a new market faces the uncertainty of consumer behavior. An organization operates within a chosen environment which may embrace political, economic, geophysical, technological, sociological, and even psychological forces. Any organization which provides goods and services to this exclusive segment of the environment is otherwise known as an environmental service organization, or ESO. An ESO is expected to structure a successful response to the challenges posed by the environment. ANSOF proposes the application of 4 logical filters to the environment so that there is a proper assessment of the challenges. The filters are: number 1, scanning filter; number 2, information filter; number 3, mentality filter; and finally, number 4, power filter. Each filter plays a specific role, and jointly they address the environmental challenges effectively. The first in the series of the scanning filters, the primary role of this filter is to limit the environment search to what is relevant and appropriate. If the turbulence level does not exceed 3, it may be enough to scan the existing markets with extrapolative forecasts. How far into the future should one extrapolate is perhaps a matter of sound judgment. If, on the other hand, we are dealing with a turbulent environment, we need to be cautious and consider the implications of several scenarios which are relevant to the fast-paced, discontinuous environment. We live in an information age. If the environment is history-driven, data may be collected in predetermined categories in a systematic manner to facilitate extrapolative forecasting. This selective approach to data collection, storage, and retrieval is done by the information filter. Interpretation of the available data is equally important. Should discontinuities occur in the environment and the managers either don't recognize them or simply ignore them, they suffer from strategic myopia. The mentality filter determines how managers interpret data collected through information filter. The fourth and the last filter is called the power filter, which is an index of the power position managers possess. If their power base is weak, the managers may not be able to make the necessary changes to mitigate the environmental discontinuities. Ansoff believes that the filters help to clearly identify signals from the environment leading to trends, threats, and opportunities. He is very concerned about issues becoming strategic surprises. In personal health care, for example, timely flu shots are prescribed by doctors to avoid debilitating influenza when the cold season commences. If strategic issues are not diagnosed and acted upon in a timely manner, they may lead to strategic surprises, which are much more difficult to control. Obviously, a stitch in time saves 9. This sensibility to environmental signals come under the broad scope of strategic issue management. When an issue moves too fast to be defined and acted upon in a timely manner, we confront strategic surprise. And to some extent, this could be mitigated through a contingency planning process, which is adequate enough to respond to surprises. This requires special training activity so that managers are fully prepared for all eventualities. Ansoff has developed a well-tested strategic success paradigm which provides for realization of optimum performance when strategic aggressiveness, otherwise known as SA, and general management capability responsiveness, GMCR, are aligned with environmental turbulence. Strategic aggressiveness of a firm has 2 characteristics. The first one is a measure of how much discontinuity exists between successive product service introductions to the market. The second characteristic refers to the timeliness of these new product introductions relative to such new product services which have already appeared in the market. Accordingly, the 5 levels of strategic aggressiveness are: number 1, no change; number 2, incremental reactive change; number 3, incremental proactive change; number 4, discontinuous familiar change; and number 5, discontinuous novel change. An example of novel change is the introduction of Blu-ray, also known as Blu-ray disc, otherwise known as BD, which represents the next generation optical disc format which uses blue-violet laser to read and write data. This amazing new disc format is a product of the Blu-ray Disc Association, which represents a group of leading consumer electronics, personal computers, and media manufacturers with more than 180 global companies. For more information, please see http://www.bluray.com. Strategic aggressiveness without appropriate organizational responsiveness, GMCR, will not lead to strategic success. The first level of responsiveness is custodial, which is driven by precedence, suppressing change, seeking stability, and remaining a closed system. Or at the other end of the spectrum, level 5 represents flexible, firm, which seeks to create its own environment, embracing novel change and exhibiting creativity in an open system. Between these two extremes, levels 2, 3, and 4, which are driven by efficiency, market forces, and environment, respectively. While levels 2 firms adapts to change, level 3 group seeks familiar change, and at level 4, the firm seeks new change. The gradual transition from level 1 to 5 of organizational responsiveness and the strategic aggressiveness are meant to provide an appropriate match with the 5 levels of environment turbulence described earlier. Ansoff uses a tool called strategic diagnosis to describe a procedure that helps to improve the alignment of the 3 variables, ET, SA, and GMCR. Clear determination of ET level is the first step in the procedure. This will lead to the appropriate levels of strategic aggressiveness and GMCR required for optimum performance. If there is a gap between what is desirable and what the existing levels of the 2 variables, this gap needs to be closed. This involves behavioral and systemic changes. Resistance to change is a behavioral attribute. Ansoff recognizes 4 methods of managing resistance to change. They include coercive approach, adaptive approach, crisis management, and managed resistance. The last approach was developed by Ansoff, providing a balance between being coercive and being adaptive. Ansoff believes that it's important to ensure a proper power base at the outset, with relevant changes in capacity leading to strategy changes. This is followed by a series of modular projects. Each project should demarcate the planning and the execution phase. Ansoff has been able to institutionalize this change process with empirical support from a series of doctoral dissertations. In all, there were 945 observations of different ESO types in different countries, showing that when the 3 variables, ET, SA, and GMCR, are aligned, the concerned organization register better performance. In a sense, this is the main thrust of synchronization at the strategic level. Without synchronization, we cannot aspire to compete in today's turbulent world.